So, believe it or not, I've come upon a rumor that I actually kind of believe. It seems Disney has actually been trying to sell Star Wars for quite some time. The problem is nobody seems to want it. We need to talk about that. Here we go. So, for today's special video, I brought in a guest, my brother Loki. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Star Wars. And Loki, what's your initial reaction to not being able to sell Star Wars?
They gutted it. What's left? I mean, it's a husk of what it used to be. They gutted it. They took all the golden eggs from the goose, and then they're like, who wants to buy what's left over? Nobody wants to buy what's left over because it's just you killed it. You cut it open and you took all the gold, and now you don't want it anymore. This sounds like Disney. They did this to Power Rangers too. So yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, but let's jump into the story from our friends over at That Park Place, and it looks like there's this rumor from Chris Gore, who's credible over at Film Thread, and he's reporting that Disney has been trying to sell Star Wars for 7 months. 7 months! Nobody will buy it. Film Thread seeks additional information, and so do we. This is crazy stuff, Loki. Gosh, and Chris Gore, he's a reliable guy.
He's a very reliable individual who wouldn't be bringing this to you unless he believed that it's true.
Yeah, and it looks like a new rumor surfaced from Film Thread's Chris Gore and Alan Ng, suggesting that Disney's been quietly looking to sell Star Wars for the past 7 months, but reportedly, there's been no takers, dude. Plus, look at this thumbnail on their video. I think that's great.
Star Wars for sale and no one's buying. Who can afford it? Yeah. Who can afford it right now and afford to revive it? See, it's not just, oh, well, Loki, I'm sure there are a couple of people that would love to buy the IP. You have to buy the rights to the films. You got to get the toy rights. There's a ton of stuff here that you have to get locked down that you are going to be getting that doesn't amount to much anymore because they're not making money off of this stuff.
Yeah, and what's really weird, Loki, is this comes on the heels of us finding out that Kathleen Kennedy may step down from being the studio head. She's not going to quit movies, of course, and she's certainly going to keep her producerial credit on anything that she wants to, as far as Star Wars and other projects go. But Loki, they don't have anybody who wants to run it, and they don't have anybody who wants to buy it. There's like people that maybe want to run it, but I don't think they have the people to run it. So get rid of it.
Well, you got to remember now the Force is female culture. So whether they pull it out and throw it in the bin like Homegirl did in 007, or you've got someone that's got to come in and completely repair the brand. You've got books, you've got movies, you've got video games, you've got comic books, you've got music, you've got action figures. There's a ton that goes into this, and you have to evaluate everything, which means that you have to put a price tag on everything. You have to go, okay, well, what if we only get the movie rights? What if we only get the toy rights? What if we only get the game rights? What happened to Lucasfilm? What's going to happen to Lucasfilm and LucasArts and all of these divisions that have been integrated into Disney? And do you even want to get involved in cleaning that mess out and getting people in that are going to be inspired, that are going to want to create good stories? I wouldn't. If I had all the money in the world right now, I wouldn't get involved in this because, like I said, they gutted the golden goose and they left the husk just laying there. That's what you're going to have to pick up and you're going to have to fix.
Yeah, and that's kind of wild. And as I look at this, and it says here in the story that Gore, who definitely has industry contacts, but is talking to somebody from the financial sector of entertainment, and they informed him that Disney has been putting out feelers to gauge interest in selling Star Wars or potentially the entirety of Lucasfilm, which I think that would be a better deal. But the question is it worth $4 billion still, or is it worth $1 billion, or is it worth $500 million? Is this like going through the same thing Star Trek went through? I don't know. But they've been at it for several months now. Nobody wants it. They can't find a buyer. It doesn't seem like they have any people at all interested. But a quiet effort to offload the Star Wars brand. Gore was very careful about to clarify that this information comes from a single source, so he's not reporting it. Allen's not reporting it. It's still a rumor. It's somebody's statement. However, he decided to bring the rumor to light in hopes of encouraging others within the industry to collaborate or provide additional details. That makes sense. See if you can beat the bushes till something runs out of there. But this is from a friend who is not in the nerd space, so they're not us, Loki, and they're from the world of finance, a trusted individual, who says for 7 months they have put feelers out about Star Wars. Now, Loki, if you had $3 billion, would you try to buy Star Wars right now?
No, absolutely not. Even though, if it's Lucasfilm as a whole, you got to consider this. You're getting ILM, you're getting Skywalker Sound. Go and look and see how many movies use ILM and use Skywalker Sound. All of that is under the Lucasfilm's umbrella. I can't imagine Disney would be getting rid of any of that. So let's just say it's Star Wars. It's Star Wars alone. You've got Star Wars, like I said, you've got toys, you've got movies, you've got games, you've got comic books. So let's just disassociate Lucasfilm as a whole from Star Wars. Even if you paid $3 billion for Star Wars, how are they gonna separate that from the Disney parks? How are they gonna separate that from the things they've already known that they've already included? So how are they gonna do that? Whatever you're doing, this has been completely integrated now into Disney. That is what they have done over the last decade. They have completely integrated Star Wars into Disney and made it a Disney brand and a girl brand. Mind you, the Force is female. Remember that. I wouldn't touch it if I had $10 billion, much less $3 billion.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a long shot. I mean, obviously, when you're dealing with this, and Marvin mentions it in the article here from That Park Place, that if you buy Star Wars or even Lucasfilm, Disney's heavily integrated with Star Wars. And not just Star Wars, but Indiana Jones and other things that come out of there. And because of that, you'd have to negotiate the rights usage deal that would be worked out with Disney on top of all of this. You would have to work out merchandising, and then you would have to change. You'd have to have something in there that says they're not going to manufacture any garbage merchandise anymore. It's going to be all the original merchandise and everything else. You may want to own the characters or the ships or something if you're whoever purchases this. But I'm going to tell you right now, Loki, I wouldn't produce any of the merchandise that is basically worthless at this point. And then if there's no buyers interested, and again, this was a sale that happened for a little over $4 billion. They obviously can't sell it for that. They may be asking for more, and they've done nothing but to devalue it, as you've pointed out. In 7 months, no buyer. Bad problem. So it's possible, and this is a good question that Marvin asks, if they're asking for too much money, if they've got too many contractual entanglements, or if the current state of Star Wars is just dissuading anybody that would want to buy it. I think all of those answers are probably could all be yes. They could all be yes, not just one or a couple of them. They've been destroying what little was left with their treatment of it, and they have supposedly projects on the horizon. Outside of this Grogu movie, Loki, do you think there's anything that's going to entertain audiences coming out of Star Wars?
Nothing yet. I find it a lot more likely that they are evaluating the price, because sometimes companies do that. They will look at, okay, we need to evaluate what this is worth, what this part of the company is worth. I could see them doing that with Star Wars. I could see them doing that with Lucasfilm, even if they aren't going to separate, even if they aren't going to sell. Is there any reason for Disney to sell? Any reason whatsoever? Right now, their parks are doing okay. Their movies aren't doing okay, but they're in no real financial danger. They're in no trouble right now of, well, we're going to have to start selling off assets if we want to survive. Maybe this is something they're looking at in the future, that if things don't go well, we might be able to separate this or separate that. Right now, I don't see that happening. Is it possible something like that happens in the future? Yes. I think that's what they are doing. I think they're trying to get an idea of what the property is worth. They probably don't have anyone that's jumping at it because no one wants to spend the money on something that's been gutted.
I agree with you, but there's maybe bigger issues because Alan Ing was asking questions about if Disney were to sell the brand, what would that look like? Because I guess that at one point in time, the Hugh Hefner's mansion was sold while he was still inside of it. And that would be kind of a different thing considering how invested Disney is in the brand of Star Wars and vice versa. And he asked this question verbatim: Are you really buying Lucasfilm, or are you just owner in name only and Disney will still run things? That's a
No.
big, big question. I would not buy it if that was the case. I would be immediately decanonizing the woke trash that we've gotten since Kathleen Kennedy took over, and I would find ways for that never to be shown in public ever again. And then
And
I would go
fire.
out and yeah, I would go out and get even better Star Wars, and that would force Disney to change their theme park representations because there would be basically nothing out there to support their woke uh, justification for changing, the heart of Star Wars, which is what they did in their theme park iterations. So the question obviously remains: does this end up being like Spider-Man, or does somebody end up with the whole kit and caboodle? I would not buy it if I wasn't getting the whole kit and caboodle, and I couldn't imagine anybody else. According to Marvin, while this remains unverified, Gore's intent in sharing the rumor is to encourage other industry insiders to come forward and bring out additional information, kind of like what happened with the Puck Media story, right?
Yeah.
And so he urged, let's do an investigation together and get the full story. Because if all of this is happening, it's crazy. This would mark a significant shift in Disney's approach to one of the most valuable intellectual properties. But for now, the entertainment world is left to speculate. Is Disney truly looking to sell Star Wars? So I'm going to leave it there, Loki, and I'm gonna ask you for your final word here. Can you imagine Disney selling Star Wars? And if so, can you imagine that it's taken this long to sell it? And if that's true, can you believe how far it's fallen? I mean, there's a lot of questions there, man. What do you got?
No, I do not think that. I really don't think they're going to sell it unless they're in major financial trouble. They have spent the last decade collecting IPs like they are Tic Tacs. From Fox, what Fox owned and everything Fox had their hands in, to Star Wars. They have spent all this time collecting them like they're little prizes, like they're Funko Pops that they're going to put up on their shelves and collect. They're not going to sell them, not unless they're absolutely forced to. Do I think that someone could come in and be like, "Hey, I want to own it, but you guys run it"? I don't see them doing that either. But if they did, that would be the dumbest thing possible because you have to clean house. You have to get rid of everyone that went along with all this nonsense. You have to get rid of every single suit, every single officer, every single person that was like, all hail KK, the queen of Star Wars. Get rid of them all. Why? Because they took no action and they took part in all of this. They've destroyed this brand. That Disney can keep coming out with series after series. They can say they're going to make a Rey movie. They can say whatever they want to. They have run this into the ground. Everybody that was responsible for that needs to go if they are not already gone. Why? Because this is the biggest IP of all time. This is Star Wars. This was huge. Generations of fans, books, games, movies, comics, everything you could possibly think of. The amount of people that worked on the books alone that were told, no, this is canon. You are writing canon. That's why it has to pass these checks and balances. So you all aren't writing against each other and saying this happened or that happened when this was supposed to happen. It's all going into canon. That's what the writers were told. Obviously, Disney didn't want to keep with any of that. They wanted to cherry pick this character, that, and it's gone nothing but downhill since then. Like I started this out with, they gutted the golden goose. They stole the eggs, and they didn't care that goose could have kept them in gold for the rest of their lives. It didn't matter. They wanted it all, and they wanted it now, and they wanted it their way. Well, they've got it their way. Enjoy it.
Yeah, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. But hey, what do you all think? Do you think that Disney Star Wars is for sale? And if so, do you think anybody's going to buy it? And if so, do you think they're going to want all of Lucasfilm as well? Or do you think they'll be satisfied with just owning the brand itself? Let me know down in the comments section below. And while you're down there, hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. We are aiming at 100K this year, and I can get there with your help. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands because it's good hygiene. And until next time, see ya for real.